My beloved child. There is something happening behind the scenes of your life, something so subtle, yet so powerful, that even you have not fully grasped it yet. And it began the moment you chose to be real, not perfect, not polished, but real. They saw it. Not the version of you that the world tries to shape, not the mask you sometimes wear to survive, but the quiet truth you carry within. The part of you that doesn't beg for attention, yet commands it without trying. And that is where everything changed. You may not have noticed the shift at first, how their energy lingered a little longer around you, how their words became softer, more careful, how their eyes searched for you even in crowded spaces. But something inside them refused to stay silent. Because the real you awakened something they weren't prepared for. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was undeniable. They tried to ignore it. Yes, they did. They told themselves it was nothing, just a passing emotion, just a moment of admiration. They distracted themselves, buried their thoughts, convinced their heart to stay quiet. But the more they tried to walk away from what they felt, the stronger it pulled them back. Why? Because what they felt with you didn't feel like confusion. It felt like recognition. And that terrified them more than you know. Because meeting someone who sees you, truly sees you, is rare. But being seen in return, that's something the soul cannot easily escape. There were nights when your presence crossed their mind without warning, moments when your voice echoed in their silence, times when they caught themselves smiling, and didn't know why. And slowly, without permission, you became a part of their inner world. But here's what you don't yet realize. The version of you they discovered is not something they can unsee. It stays with them. It lingers. It calls them back, even when they try to move forward. And now, they are standing at a quiet crossroads within themselves. A place where denial is no longer comfortable. And truth is becoming impossible to ignore. Because something is about to rise to the surface. Something they've been holding back. Something that will change the way you see everything. But before that moment arrives, there is one thing they must confront first. And what they are about to realize will shake them deeper than they ever expected. Something unexpected is beginning to surface within them, and it's not gentle. It arrives in quiet moments, when distractions fade, when the noise of the world finally softens, and they are left alone with their own truth. And in those moments, your presence doesn't just appear. It confronts them. Not as a memory, but as a feeling they can no longer control. They start questioning everything. Why you? Why now? Why does your energy feel so different from everyone else they've ever known? And the more they search for logical answers, the more they realize this isn't something logic can explain. Because what they feel doesn't come from the mind. It comes from somewhere deeper, somewhere they've been avoiding for a long time. Their heart. Yes, the very place they once guarded so carefully, the place they promised themselves they wouldn't open again so easily, is now responding to you in ways they didn't expect, and certainly didn't plan. And that realization? It shakes them. Because this isn't just attraction, it isn't temporary, and it definitely isn't something they can switch off when it becomes inconvenient. This is something real. And real feelings demand real decisions. That's where the conflict begins. You see, a part of them wants to step closer to you, to understand you more. To feel that calm, grounding energy you carry. But another part of them hesitates. Not because of you, but because of what loving you might require from them. Vulnerability, honesty, change. These are not small things. And deep down, they know, if they step toward you fully, there's no going back to who they used to be. So they pause. They observe. They watch you from a distance at times. Trying to understand how you move, how you think, how you remain so effortlessly authentic in a world that rewards pretending. And here's what unsettles them the most. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not chasing validation. You're simply being yourself, and somehow, that's exactly what draws them in. It's almost magnetic. Almost dangerous. Because every time they try to create distance, something pulls them right back into your orbit. A word you say. A small gesture. Even your silence. It all speaks to them louder than they'd like to admit. And slowly, the walls they built so carefully over time, are beginning to crack. Not all at once. But enough for light to start getting in. And with that light, comes clarity. A realization they've been trying to avoid, but can no longer escape. This isn't just a fleeting connection. This is something that has the power to change them, to challenge them. To awaken parts of them they thought were long gone. And now, they are standing face to face with a truth that refuses to be ignored any longer. They are falling for you. But here's where it takes an unexpected turn. Because just as they begin to accept this feeling, something from their past, something unresolved, begins to rise again. And what happens next, will test not only their feelings, but the very future of this connection. Out of nowhere, something they thought was long buried begins to stir again. Not softly, not quietly, but with a weight that demands to be felt. It's a memory, a past connection, a chapter of their life they never fully closed. And just when their heart was beginning to open toward you, this old energy resurfaces, asking for attention, asking for resolution. At first, they try to ignore it. They tell themselves it doesn't matter anymore, that it has nothing to do with you. That they've already moved on. But the truth? Unfinished emotions have a way of returning, especially when something real is about to begin. And this is no coincidence. Because the closer they feel to you, the more their soul begins to clear out what no longer belongs. But to them, it feels like confusion. One moment, they feel pulled toward you with an intensity they can't explain, and the next, they're caught in a storm of old thoughts, old doubts, old fears. It frustrates them. It overwhelms them. And for a brief moment, they even question if they should step back from you, not because their feelings aren't real, but because they are too real. And real emotions force people to confront truths they've been avoiding. You might sense this shift. That subtle distance, that slight hesitation in their energy, the way they seem present, yet somewhere else at the same time. And it leaves you wondering. Did something change? Did they lose interest? Or, is something deeper happening beneath the surface? Listen closely. Because what you're witnessing is not a loss of feeling. It's a battle within them. A battle between who they used to be, and who they are becoming. Their past is familiar, predictable, safe in its own way. Even if it wasn't perfect, it's something they understand. But you? You represent something unknown, something deeper, something that requires growth, honesty, and a level of emotional presence they've never fully embraced before. And that kind of transformation, it doesn't come without resistance. There are moments when they almost retreat completely, when fear whispers that it's easier to go back, easier to choose what's comfortable instead of what's meaningful. But then, something about you interrupts that thought. It could be your energy, your calm strength, the way you exist without forcing anything. Or simply the way they feel when they think of you. And suddenly, the idea of walking away from you feels heavier than facing their past. That's when the shift begins. Slowly, but powerfully. They start realizing that this resurfacing past isn't here to pull them back. It's here to be released. Because your presence in their life is not random. It's transformative. And transformations require endings before new beginnings can fully take root. But here's the part they haven't fully admitted to themselves yet. In order to move forward with you, they will have to make a decision. A real one. Not based on fear, not based on comfort, but based on truth. And that decision is approaching faster than they expected. Because very soon, something will happen. Something that forces them to choose. And when that moment arrives, there will be no more hiding from what they feel. A moment is approaching. One they cannot delay, ignore, or soften. It won't arrive with warning, it won't ask for permission, it will simply happen, and when it does, everything inside them will fall silent for a second, just long enough for truth to speak. Because the universe has a way of arranging encounters that feel ordinary on the surface, yet carry life-changing weight beneath. It could be a conversation, a sudden message, an unexpected meeting. But whatever form it takes, it will reach them at the exact moment their heart is no longer able to pretend. And in that moment, they will feel you. Not just as a thought, not just as a possibility, but as something real standing right in front of them. Their instincts will try to protect them at first, reminding them of past pain, whispering doubts, urging them to stay guarded just a little longer. But something stronger will rise above that noise. Clarity. A quiet but undeniable knowing that what they feel for you is not something to question anymore, but something to honor. And this realization? It won't be loud, it won't need validation. It will simply settle within them like truth always does. Heavy, certain, impossible to ignore. For the first time, they will stop running from their own emotions. They will stop analyzing every feeling, stop searching for reasons to hold back, stop trying to control something that was never meant to be controlled. And instead, they will feel. Fully. Honestly. Without filters. But here's where everything shifts. Because feeling is only the beginning. What comes after is action. And action requires courage. You see, it's one thing to admit to themselves that they are falling for you. But it's another thing entirely to stand in front of you, or reach out to you, and risk being seen just as deeply as they've seen you. That vulnerability? It's the final threshold. And they are standing right at the edge of it. Their mind will race with questions. What if it changes everything? What if they can't go back? What if you don't feel the same way? But beneath all those questions, there's one truth that keeps rising above the rest. What if they lose you, by saying nothing? That thought. It lingers longer than fear. It presses against their chest, it follows them into silence, it refuses to let them stay comfortable in indecision. Because deep down, they already know. You are not someone who enters their life twice. You are not a connection that can be paused and returned to later. You are a moment. A rare one. And moments like this demand to be chosen. So now, everything inside them is building toward a single decision. To stay silent, and let you drift away. Or to step forward, and risk everything for something real. And just as they begin to gather the courage to choose, something unexpected happens on your side. A shift, subtle, yet powerful. Something you do, or say, without even realizing. That changes the entire direction of what comes next. There is a shift, quiet, almost invisible, yet powerful enough to change everything. And it comes from you. Not through grand gestures, not through force, but through something far more rare in this world. Your stillness. At a moment when they expect uncertainty from you, when they expect you to chase, to question, to reach for answers. You do the opposite. You step back. Not out of fear, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. You choose your peace. And that is what they didn't see coming. Because in their past, silence often meant distance, withdrawal, endings. But your silence? It feels different. It carries strength, not absence. It holds dignity, not confusion. And suddenly, they feel it. The space where your energy once reached them so effortlessly, now feels quiet. Too quiet. At first, they tell themselves it's nothing. They assume you're just busy, distracted, focused elsewhere. But as time moves, and that same calm distance remains, something inside them begins to stir again, but this time, it's not confusion. It's awareness. They realize. You are no longer waiting in the same way. You are no longer holding the door open endlessly. And for the first time, they feel what life might be like without your presence reaching for them. And it unsettles them. Because now, it's not just about what they feel for you. It's about what they might lose. Moments begin to replay in their mind. The way you listened without judgment. The way your energy brought them peace without asking for anything in return. The way you existed, without needing to prove your worth. And suddenly, they see you differently. Not just as someone they feel connected to, but as someone rare. Someone they cannot replace. And that realization? It hits deeper than any emotion they've felt so far. Because now, the thought of losing you isn't abstract anymore. It feels real. It feels close. And it creates a sense of urgency they can no longer ignore. No more delays. No more overthinking. No more hiding behind maybe later. Because later is no longer guaranteed. You've shifted the energy, without even trying. And in doing so, you've brought them face to face with the one truth they've been avoiding all along. That loving you is not something they can do halfway. But here's where the final turning point begins. Because realization alone is not enough. Feeling alone is not enough. There comes a moment, when everything they've been holding inside, everything they've been afraid to say, demands to be expressed. And that moment? It's closer than you think. Because very soon, they will reach out. Not casually, not uncertainly. But with something they can no longer keep within themselves. And when they do, what they reveal will change the energy between you forever. It begins without perfection, but it begins with truth. No rehearsed lines, no carefully crafted image, just a moment where they finally allow their heart to speak louder than their fear. And when they reach out, you will feel it immediately. There will be something different in their tone, in their energy, in the way they choose their words. It won't feel casual anymore, it won't feel uncertain. It will feel intentional. Because this time, they are not reaching you out of curiosity. They are reaching you out of clarity. Every hesitation they once carried, every doubt that once held them back, has led them to this exact point. And now, standing here, they understand something they couldn't see before. You were never an option. You were the answer they kept trying to avoid. So when they speak, it won't be loud or overwhelming. But it will be real. They may not say everything all at once. They may not reveal every emotion in perfect detail, but between their words, you will hear it. The truth they can no longer hide. And it will sound like relief. Like someone who has been holding their breath for far too long, finally exhaling. They will acknowledge the distance, the hesitation, the confusion. Not as excuses, but as something they had to move through to truly understand what you mean to them. And in that moment, they won't just be showing you their feelings. They will be showing you their growth. Because choosing you now, means they are no longer running from themselves. But listen closely. Because this moment is not only about them. It is about you too. You will feel a wave of emotions rise within you, questions you thought you had buried, feelings you tried to quiet. And suddenly, everything you thought you had moved past, stands gently in front of you again. Not to confuse you, but to give you a choice. Will you open your heart to what is being offered now? Or will you hold on to the version of them who once hesitated? Because they are not coming to you as the same person anymore. They are coming to you, aware. Aware of your value. Aware of your presence. Aware that what exists between you is not ordinary. And awareness changes everything. But here's the final layer, the part that cannot be ignored. Words, no matter how sincere, are only the beginning. Because what truly defines this connection moving forward is what they do next. And that is where everything will either deepen or quietly fall apart. Because very soon, they will be given an opportunity to prove what they feel. Not through promises, but through action. And the way they choose to show up in that moment will reveal everything you need to know. There comes a moment, subtle, yet decisive, where everything spoken must transform into something real. And that moment has now arrived. Not in the form of grand declarations, not through dramatic gestures designed to impress, but through something far more powerful. Consistency. Because when feelings are true, they don't appear once and disappear. They remain. They return. They prove themselves over time. And now, you begin to notice it. The way they show up, not just when it's easy, but when it requires effort. The way they listen, not just to respond, but to truly understand you. The way they choose you, not in words, but in presence. It's quiet, but undeniable. And slowly, the uncertainty that once surrounded this connection begins to dissolve. Not because everything is suddenly perfect, but because it's finally honest. You see, real love doesn't arrive as a fantasy fulfilled. It arrives as a truth revealed. A truth that asks both hearts to meet in the middle, without masks. Without fear, without conditions. And for the first time, they are doing exactly that. But here's the part that matters most. They are no longer trying to convince you of anything. They are showing you. Through their patience. Through their effort. Through their willingness to stay, even when things are not perfectly understood. And that is something they were never able to offer before. Because now, they are not loving you from a place of confusion. They are loving you from a place of clarity. A place where they understand that you are not just someone who made them feel something. You are someone who changed them. And that kind of connection, it doesn't fade. It evolves. It deepens. It becomes something steady, something grounding, something real. But listen carefully. Because even in something this beautiful, there is still a quiet truth you must hold on to. You are not here to lose yourself in this connection. You are here to meet it, as your full self. And the moment you remember that, everything aligns the way it was always meant to. No chasing. No confusion. No silent questions left unanswered. Only two people, choosing each other, consciously, fully, without fear. And as this chapter begins to settle into something real, you will look back at every moment of doubt, every delay, every unanswered feeling. And you will understand. It wasn't rejection. It was preparation. Preparation for a love that didn't just arrive quickly, but arrived right. And now, the story that once felt uncertain becomes the very thing that brings you peace. Because what was once hidden is now clear. What was once denied is now embraced. And what they once tried to run from, they now choose. Without hesitation.